Hi, I'm Tom Coolidge, Esri's Pipeline and Gas Utilities Industry Manager. Along with my colleague Tom DeWitte, welcome to Esri's Tracking and Traceability webinar. You may have heard that recently Esri introduced its new brand tagline, The Science of Where. You saw this on the preceding title slide, and you'll see much more of it in the future. The Science of Where reflects Esri's commitment to geoscience and to innovating the great technologies that harness it, so that you can continue to create the maps that run the global gas utility industry. Today's seminar focuses on one of those innovations, tapping the power of the platform for better tracking and traceability. We're planning about a half-hour presentation, then reserving time for questions and answers. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the next few days. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Before we get started, I would like to encourage you to post your questions in the GoToWebinar Questions dialog box during the presentation. We will answer as many as possible at the end of the webinar. Also, after today's webinar, several survey questions will be asked. We thank you in advance for taking a minute to give us your feedback. Next slide, please, Tom. Evolution of the natural gas industry is heavily influenced by regulatory and market drivers. Today, gas utilities are striving more than ever for improved efficiency and effectiveness while continuing to meet regulatory requirements. The Tracking and Traceability Initiative is responsive to all of those drivers. Next slide. In general, gas utilities are being expected or required in some cases to know in greater detail what is buried underground in its origin. The Tracking and Traceability regulation being considered has several major goals. One, improving the ability to identify the origin of material and parts used to manufacture a component and/or the product processing or manufacturing history. That's what's generally known as traceability. Also, improving the ability to know, document, and/or collect information related to the distribution and location of a given component after delivery from the manufacturer or supplier. That's the tracking part. Next slide. In the U.S., the pending plastic pipe rule contains a number of specific requirements. At section 192.3, have the method to identify the locations of pipe, the person who joined the pipe, and the components within the pipe. Then at .375, maintain tracking and traceability information records for the life of the pipeline. And at .63, require operators to adopt the tracking and traceability requirements in the ASTM F289711A standard. GIS is an essential component of solutions such as those necessary to satisfy these requirements. Esri continues to enhance the ArcGIS platform to provide the new and expanded capabilities needed by customers who use its core functionality out of the box and partners who build further on it to provide even more capable solutions. For plastic pipe, your GIS is the ideal system of record to store the more detailed data resulted from scanning the 16-character barcode placed on plastic pipe. Please welcome my colleague, Tom DeWitte.
Thank you, Tom. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to verify. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Let's dig in a little bit deeper into this barcode for a minute, because this barcode is really key when we talk about how can we improve the efficiency, the productivity of this whole data gathering process, that more specifically tracking and traceability. So when we look at this barcode, you know, what's inside of it? Well, first it's the things you would probably expect. It's manufacturer lot number, manufacturer date, and before you start yawning, yeah, that's the start of it. But then it gets really interesting, because then it gets to, it's the material, it's the diameter, it's even the wall thickness, it's the pressure rating, it's the model, it's the type. And when you start to look at that, it's like, wow, there's a lot of information into that barcode. If I can have a process where we just capture the barcode, well, then my user just captured all this information that they would otherwise manually enter, or in today's world, probably write it down on paper, give it to someone in the office, and the person in the office would manually transpose it and enter it into the GIS. So can we take that barcode and use it to automatically give us that information and then automatically populate that into the GIS so we get rid of all this manual data entry? Barcode's really key when we talk about tracking and traceability. So let me kind of take a step back. I'm going to get into a demo here in just a few minutes, but I want to kind of talk the whole picture. How is this all stitched together? And in the short time that we have, I want to talk a little bit about digital as-builting and how there have been some significant changes, enhancements in technology. Some of them you may be familiar with. You may be familiar with, for instance, when you get into your car and your phone automatically connects to your car through Bluetooth communication so that you can, talk hands-free while you're driving down the road. That Bluetooth communication is also a core component of a successful digital as-builting solution, because it is going to allow these newer GPS antennas to transmit their information to your smartphone, to your tablet, to your laptop that is running an Esri application and can consume that information. It is that same Bluetooth communication that is going to enable the barcode scanner to capture that 16-digit barcode information, that ASTM standard that we just talked about, that wealth of knowledge, and automatically push that to the smartphone, tablet, laptop, whatever you're using. You can see my little picture here, the guy in the upper left. It looks like he's got a little tablet there, and that's going to, again, stream right into Collector. Makes a big difference. So when we talk about digital as-builting, you kind of think about this, if you're not familiar with it, think about you're going to use a global positioning system, GPS, to accurately capture the location of the assets. And then you're going to take advantage of that barcode that the manufacturers are putting on all the fittings, all the pipes, all the valves, all that good stuff that we're going to install. It's all on there, and we're going to use this barcode scanner to capture that and put that right into Collector. So that's digital as-builting. But now the next piece of this technology stack that we're going to talk about is when that field person captures that, we now today, again, using the technologies that are out there today, can have that information be in real time submitted to my little cloud here in the middle, a staging geodatabase. This is really convenient if you are one of those companies that has contractors, for example, going out and doing the majority or maybe all of your new construction. And think of all the issues that come historically in the past with that information. They're going to write it down, they're going to write on drawings, they're going to at some point get it to you. It could be days, weeks, months. I've heard a lot of different stories over the years. Now what we're talking about is with that digital as-builting, as soon as they finish capturing the information and hit submit, it is in this repository. It is immediately available for the office to retrieve and process. No longer do we have to wait days, weeks, months for it to show up. It's now minutes, seconds for it to show up. That's a big deal. The staging geodatabase is a temporary holding spot. It is not the end result. So it's just holding this newly captured information. Then what's going to happen, what I'm going to walk you through, is my little icon down here, my two little mapper icons. Those mappers in the office, the ones today who are maintaining your GIS data, they're going to connect to that staging geodatabase, and they're going to, they're going to pull down that information, and they're going to put it into the enterprise geodatabase. And when that happens, that's when we have the opportunity to decode that barcode and automatically populate the derived information, that material, that wall thickness, that diameter, the manufacturer information. All that information can be auto-populated, so there's no manual data entry, there's no typo. So if you're a distribution integrity person, think of what this does for the quality of the data that you're going to rely on for future analytics. That's going to go right into the enterprise geodatabase. Your mappers will do some additional cleanup to make sure that we connect the legacy gas system with this new data. This new data is probably significantly more accurate. I'll talk about that as we get into the demo. And then the whole reason we're doing this is so that at some point down the road, when we really get to the heart, the base of what is tracking and traceability, is my little guy sitting here in the chair on the bottom left, so that an analyst, when that DOT notice comes out, that federal notice or manufacturer notice that says, hey, we have a recall on a specific lot number or a specific model type, now the call comes throughout the company. We need to find where did we install those. That's really easy with what we've done up to this point. It's a simple process for this analyst to run that query, identify those locations where those particular assets were installed, make maps, and push them out to the rest of the company so that people can now make informed decisions on what to do next. So that's, we put all this together. We have the technology today, both what Esri provides, what our business partners provide, what is the state of the hardware today to stitch all this together very easily. And I'm going to try to show you as much of this as I can. Okay, so with that, let's take this for a drive. Let's do a little demonstration. So what I have here, while I'm in the office, I'm not in the field because it's in Minnesota and it's kind of cold outside, is I have a tablet. And I'm going to turn on my tablet so that everybody can hopefully see my tablet. And give it a second here to catch up. And let me drag on the screen so everybody can see it beyond just me. There we go. So I have my little emulator so you can see my tablet. And I'm going to back up here a little bit. I'm using a standard tablet. In this case, happens to be an iPad. Could just as easily be a Windows tablet, an Android tablet, an Apple tablet in case what I'm using. And let's kind of walk through a little scenario here. So let's walk through the scenario that I am a contractor because I'm going to install a new service line, and that's something that is very typically contracted out. As a contractor for my local utility, they were kind enough, they gave me this workforce app. I go back to my list that allows me in the morning, DeWitte contractors, to go in and see a list of all the work that has been assigned to me. That's great. In fact, they even give me a map that when I click on these different ones, it shows me exactly where it is. That makes things really simple. But even though I can see the dot on the map, there are still going to be days when I look at that location there in the southwest corner of Battle Creek and I go, you know, yeah, I see where it is, but I'm not really sure what the best way is to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to this little up button and I'm going to say I need a little assistance navigating me to that location. And this is going to launch one of Esri's other apps. It's our Navigator app. And Navigator has now taken, I've typed in nothing other than say navigate me to there. It knows where I am, my start location, the little green dot there at the top. Little red dot shows me where I'm going. And if I hit start navigation, I'm not going to do that because it's hard to do this in a webinar. It will start giving me that voice navigation. So if you think of how this works in the real world, it's the first thing in the morning. I've had my cup of coffee. I've talked to my crew. We're getting ready to mobilize. Got my first job. and I'm going to get in the truck, dock this thing in the truck, and it's going to talk me like we're used to with these navigation apps and get me right to this location that I'm not familiar with. All right, now when I get there, I'll come back to my work list. I have the ability to simply say, hey, I am ready to, I can put a note here, I'm ready to start the job, right? Starting work. All right, that sounds good. Looks good. Okay, and I can now say, all right, I'm at the construction site. My crew's mobilized. We've done the trench. We've put in the pipes. All that's left now is to get out the GPS and the barcode equipment and to collect this new construction that I've done, my crew has done. And again, we keep this really simple, so I just simply say collect at assignment, and it automatically launches my collector app for me, takes me right to the site, so I really don't have to know anything, even opens the right map for me, don't even have to know that, makes it really simple. And I'm going to zoom in here tight, and I'm going to keep this simple for our little demonstration this morning. But I've got a list that I configured of the different type of assets that I want to collect. And it's a long list, right? Because there's a lot of different things when you get into all the fittings and such that we might install. And I'm going slowly so you can kind of read the list. And I'm going to say, well, I'm installing a service. Let's capture that pipe first. And I get my GPS out, and I capture the location. On the right side here, I have my list of information to capture, and this list might look familiar because traditionally in a paper world, this would be a very long list of stuff that the field person would manually enter in the paper world. Lots of stuff here to capture. But we can shorten that list when we go digital. So let's fill out kind of what that might look like. I'm going to put in the install date. I'm going to say, well, we've done our testing and everything, so this thing is now, I'm going to jump a little bit, say it's in service, and I'm going to do something to kind of show one of the data quality aspects that comes from using this technology is that diameter says 1 inch by default. It's wrong. I'm going to leave it wrong, and I'm going to let the barcode fix it for me. It's an interesting kind of side effect of when you start thinking about barcodes, and that's what the manufacturer specified. It's very high quality information. I'm going to rely on it. I'm going to let it override this information. And then there is a lot of information here that I'm going to skip over because the barcode is going to populate quite a bit of this, but not all of it. They still need to tell it what trench. And let's get down here to what I really want to get to, which is the barcode. Okay, so how hard is it to do this? I do happen to have a barcode scanner with me, so I'm going to leave that up on the screen. I'm going to turn on my web camera, and you're going to see, and I think a split screen on your end, my little piece of pipe. I got a 2-inch piece of polyethylene pipe provided by Performance Pipe. They were very generous to give us this. And I've got a little barcode scanner. Okay, these things are, as you might want to say, they're just a wafer thin. They're very simplistic. I'm going to click the little button here to turn it on, a little side button. It beeps once at me, and how easy is it to sync to the device? It just beeped at me again and told me it's synced with my device. That's how easy it is once you do that initial, just like in the car, that initial Bluetooth calibration. Now, all I have to do to capture that barcode is click this one little button, point and shoot, and it captures it. So if you look at my little emulator for my tablet, you will see I have now populated this barcode. No manual typing. Why is that important? Again, back to high quality. Another thing I will kind of give you a heads up on, these barcodes are case sensitive. So you really want to trust your field people and your office people who have to read the field people handwriting or what they put in to make sure that everything that is capitalized and everything that is lowercase was done correctly. This is, again, another benefit of improving the quality here. So I'm going to say done. I've captured that. And I'm not going to fill out the other stuff. Why? Because I'm still the guy in the field, and I'm going to let that decoding of the barcode populate this manufacturer lot number, date, model, pipe grade, wall thickness, all this stuff. It's all in the barcode. I don't need to duplicate the effort of capturing it. So I'm going to keep this simple in respect of time, and I'm going to simply say submit. And when I do that, if you go back to that diagram that I had on the screen there a second ago, this is now submitted to my little staging geodatabase, right? That could be on-premise, or it could be in the cloud, whatever works best. Like I said, one of the advantages of doing it in the cloud is it's really easy to integrate with contractors and for them to submit this data. Okay, so that's the field. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my tablet. There we go. And we're going to go over to the office, and let me turn off the webcam too. You're probably tired of looking at the pipe. Okay, so let me slide this over. Let me bring over ArcMap in the office. So if you think of what's about to happen now, I am changing roles. No longer DeWitte contractor in the field. We've done our thing there. I am now an office mapper who's responsible for the data entry of updating the GIS system. So what I have here in ArcMap is I have what we would call in GIS speak, I have two data sources. I am pulling in that data that we just captured. So if I simply zoom in here a little bit to where we just did our editing, we will see that new service line, there it is, that we just captured. Now let's make sure it's the right one. So I'm going to do an identify on it. Bring it up so you can see it. Okay, so here's what was captured in the field. It's today's date and time. We got that. It knows it was me who captured it. And I come down here and I see the information that I filled out. I filled out that install date. I filled out that in-service status. I remember I left the diameter deliberately wrong because it was a 2-inch piece of pipe I just scanned. And we come down here and there's my barcode. Okay, so there's my barcode and the rest of the information is still empty. So what I'm going to do here is we have a tool that will do that, will do two things. It will, oops, bring it up. Here's my tool. So what this tool is going to do, it's actually not that complex a process. I'm going to make a box. Let's do that now. And say these are the features. The features within this box are the staging geodatabase features that I'm interested in. Don't want anything outside the box. So if we got multiple contractors out there pumping in multiple, new construction data, I can come in here and select just the one that I want to work on as the mapper. And that's in that, again, my left panel here, that's in that staging geodatabase. And what I want to do is I want to get it down here in that enterprise geodatabase, my final repository. So I'm going to turn this off, this tracking staging geodatabase, and we're going to run this tool. It takes about 20 seconds. And we'll get a dialog that's going to pop up. Get it so you can see what I see. And it's going to start. And as you can see, it's doing services. It found that barcode, decode it, going through the rest of the list to see if there's any other of those types of features that I've configured for it to find. And there we go, did it. Now, what did it do? Let me go back to my identify. What I have here now, because remember I turned off that staging geodatabase, I'm looking at just my enterprise geodatabase features. And so if I do an identify on that, we see slightly different set of information. We now see that that diameter has been fixed. Instead of the field entered or the field incorrect information of 1 inch, it now has the correct information of 2 inch. And if I look here at my barcode, I now have populated the manufacturer, the lot number, the date, the pipe spec, the pipe grade, the wall thickness. That's all that wonderful barcode information that is now populated for me. Okay, so you step back for a second, think about that. My field people do not have to manually enter this information anymore. My office people no longer have to manually type in this information anymore. We've automated that whole process thanks to that ASTM standard that allows us to do that. Okay. All right, so that, I'm going to go back to my slides here. We'll slide that guy off. Whoops. There we go. Back to our slides. Okay, so with that, before we get to the kind of summary and to all the great questions I'm sure you're going to have, got a couple of poll questions that we would like to ask. There's just 2 of them. I want to keep this simple. And this will be shared with you. You'll be able to see this. This first poll question is the basic question that I'm sure everybody's interested in is, since we have over 200 people on this session, have you already implemented a tracking and tracing solution? Where's the industry at with this? So I'm going to launch this poll question. It should pop up on your screen. It's a simple yes or no. We'll wait about 30 seconds and let's see what everybody who's on here thinks as to where they're at with this. Okay, I'm going to close this poll because it looks like we got most of the folks have responded, and thank you for that. So I'm going to close this poll, and hopefully you see the results. 78% of you said no, you haven't implemented a tracking and traceability solution yet. 23% of you, though, said yes. So let me ask question number 2, if I may, and that is, how many of you or your companies are actively looking or piloting a tracking and traceability solution? So I'm going to launch this one. This is the last one. And let's see where, again, those folks who said no, right, where are you at? Okay, I'm going to close the poll because most of you have responded. So 80% of you, as you can see the results, said yes, you are still looking for a tracking and traceability solution. 19% of you, which kind of fits with the flip of our first question, said no. And I'm assuming the 19% you've already found your solution, which is awesome. Okay, so thank you for that, and I hope that by asking those questions of everybody, it helps all of you get kind of an understanding of our whole gas industry. Where's everybody at when it comes to implementing a solution to improve the productivity, improve the efficiency as we try to accomplish tracking and traceability. All right. So let me kind of wrap up here a little bit and then we'll get to questions. Taking a step back to digital as-builting. some lessons learned, some goals I would call it, if you haven't, if most of you haven't, that I've learned personally from some of those who have already done this, who have actually gone through this process of implementing, changing from paper to digital, if I put it that way. So think about how to reduce the need for drawing in the field, right? That should be a goal of digital as-builting. That's where that GPS comes in handy. Increase consistency in data collection. If our field people are entering less information, then we're going to get, right, there's kind of less from the screw up. We're going to have better consistency. Reduce the time it takes to collect and share as-built information. It always, I won't say amazes me anymore, but it is obviously a problem that's been around for a long time of the lag between when the construction is done, when the pipe is gassed, to when the construction packet even gets to the office. And now think of the next step down the field of, well, if it's not even to the office, and in some places that's weeks or months, then how long is it before my locators have information about this new pipe, which by the way is gassed, it's live. That's how mistakes happen. That's how we get excavation damages. So if you think that in real world sense, if we can reduce the time it takes to collect and share this as-built information, get it from the field to the office in near real time, then we can get it from the office to the locators in, let's say, the next day, or give yourself some slack, the next week. That's significantly better than what most people are doing today. And if we do that, then we are going to reduce excavation damages because the locators will have better information to work off and are less likely to make mistakes. That's a plus. Okay. We're going to reduce the versioning first footprint of as-builting because now the data is coming from the field and it's going to be a quicker process. We're going to increase the accuracy of as-built data. It has been really enlightening to me personally in this last year that I've been talking to a lot of you, how it seems most of you, if I were to try to put a number on it, are looking to use sub-foot GPS devices to capture the location of your data. And again, by doing that, then when we get to the locators have better information. Hopefully there will be fewer mistakes, fewer excavation damages, our system's more reliable, and that's all, system's more safe. That's what we want. Allow for a better way to locate features, right? Again, I've said that several times that one of the end results of this is our locators get better information. And then the other part of this that can't be overlooked is our office mappers. We can increase their efficiency because we are automating more of what they do. We are now giving them actual GIS features, right? The pipe is already a GIS feature. The fittings are already GIS features. They don't have to go through the creation process there. That saves time. They're doing less data entry. That saves time. And again, just another kind of recap here. Stepping away from the Esri technology for a second and just talking about the underlying hardware. This GPS antenna, this Bluetooth communication, these barcode readers, these smart devices, this is an interesting time from a broader technology standpoint, in that we get this convergence of technologies where all this stuff just seamlessly works these days. It's so different from, I got a little bit of gray hair, from when I first started where we needed a whole IT department to do something like this. Now it just works, right? I just turned on the scanner and it just synced with my device. That's how difficult it was. It's really simple. So that's important. That's a benefit that we all get in this industry as we try to deploy this. Another thing to keep in mind, and I referenced this bottom bullet point here about Questar Gas. Questar Gas gave an amazing presentation about a year ago to the AGA conference where they summarize, they're one of the early people to do tracking and traceability, their results of, what happens when they went from paper to digital. And they documented in their presentation that their old process would typically, and this is just a service line, right? It's not that complex, took about 30 minutes in their legacy method to document. When they went to the digital as-builting approach of using that GPS and using, that barcode scanners and that kind of, technology, it went down to 10 minutes. That's pretty serious stuff. Okay. So, what does it take to deploy this thing? It doesn't take a whole lot for the field people, right? So if you've got contractors, right, what do I have to give them? You really don't have to give them anything. They already got smartphones, they already got tablets, they already got laptops, they already got that stuff. So they just need an app that can consume that information. I showed you Collector, but we also have business partners who have apps that can fill this role as well. So there's options there, which is great. And then I need a place to store that information once it's captured. That's where I call it a staging geodatabase in the earlier slide, but if we put a more product name to it, it's ArcGIS Online, it's Portal, was where that staging geodatabase is going to reside. And then if I go over to the office, what does the office need? The office doesn't need much. The office mapper needs our ArcGIS desktop. In this case, 10.2.1 or higher. That's what I used when I was the office mapper. I need an enterprise repository, so that's going to be something like ArcGIS Enterprise Basic, and then our data model, which is the UPDM 2016 edition. I put a little asterisk there because it's in that most recent model that we got permission from ASTM to embed a lot of that barcode decoding lookup table stuff. It's in there. It's a free download. You don't have to figure it out yourselves. Okay, so with that, we've got a little over 20 minutes left. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Coolidge, and I think we're going to open up for questions. Right, Tom?
Yep. Thanks, Tom. We actually have a handful of questions already received, so we'll take those first. Probably will take most of the time we have. We actually got a couple around the theme of can we use a built-in camera to scan the barcode instead of a separate Bluetooth barcode scanner? Is the barcode scanner and the GPS one device, so on and so forth. So can you talk a little bit about what you were doing and what your thoughts are about whether or not the built-in camera could serve as a barcode scanner?
Yeah, that's a great heads-up question, and the answer is it varies across the different devices. And so what I've learned is that for Android devices, when we were doing our investigation, we did find an app off the App Store that could use the camera, read the barcode, and plug it right into Collector like I showed. So yes, that's a situation where you can use the camera. On Windows, I am not so sure. We did not find an app, but it's an ever-changing story. So my answer for that one is you might have to use a Bluetooth device. On Apple, we could not find an app, and so we had to use a Bluetooth device. Now, with all that said, it is in our roadmap to, in the near future, to add barcode scanning capabilities to Collector, and hopefully that should then allow us across all three to just use the camera. But in the meantime, today, like I did with my Apple device, I had to use a Bluetooth device.
Okay. Also, just a couple questions. I think they've been answered along the way, but probably a good idea you would just summarize it, what are the options for the kinds of tablets and the operating system?
Yeah, so it's a really good point. The Collector app that I used, it is currently available on the Apple App Store as a free download. It is available on the Android App Store as a free download, and it is available on the Windows Store as a free download. So you think of when we go out in the field with devices, the three main types, Windows, Android, Apple, all three of those are covered with Collector. Collector is available on all three.
Okay. This is a question I know we've gotten in various different settings over time, but the question relates to what happens if GPS isn't working in a very urbanized area.
That is a really good question, and I'm going to partially punt on that one because I will not pretend to be a GPS expert, but what I have been told from people who are doing this is that this latest generation of devices, these GPS antennas, which have the built-in real-time differential correction to get down to that sub-foot, they have evolved to a point where the old issues of the GPS signal bouncing off of buildings and tree canopies has been greatly diminished. So I would say if you had, like me, if you'd gone out 10, 15 years ago and had those experiences, you might want to try a fresh approach, a fresh pilot, and revisit it, because what I've been told is it's improved significantly in the generation of devices.
Okay. The barcode scanner you were using, do you by chance know what model it is, the make and model?
I do. So my little one was from a company called Socket Mobile, and it was a S850 is the model number. I think it was less than $300, not that expensive.
Okay. And a question about the barcodes on pipe. Is the barcode printed on the entire length of the pipe?
Yes, that's part of the standard. I think it's got to be repeated every 2 or 3, I think it might be 3 feet, something like that. It is repeated.
Yeah. And I think it's also not only repeated, but it's repeated at different points around the pipe. So it's easier to spot regardless of how the pipe's laying in the trench. So I think the standard has tried to take care of that. There is a question about whether the barcode's on steel pipes, and I think that varies at this point in time, but our understanding is that steel pipe manufacturers are certainly thinking about getting on the barcode bandwagon, but it's not a matter of regulatory requirement at this point. It's more just industry trend lines. Tom, about where the toolbox is available from.
Yeah, so the toolbox with that decoder tool is available on GeoNet. So that is Esri's forum for discussions on things like this. If you simply go to GeoNet and search on tracking and traceability, you should find the blog post that I wrote on how to do this, and as well as links within those blog posts on how to download the zip file that contains that toolbox.
Okay. Next question is, how come you do the decoding of the barcode on the back end and not real time, so you can confirm that the correct information is displayed on the tablet?
We do have some business partners that provide that option, and that is definitely a value add. We don't have the ability to do that with Collector, so if that's of critical importance to you, then I would strongly suggest you take a look at some of our good business partners who have that capability.
Yeah, we've seen some exciting stuff from our partners who build on this core capability. How do you recommend tracking accuracy of GPS points for vertices along pipes, not at point features, when they are different?
Yeah, so I didn't go into that today because of the shortness of time, but one of the other capabilities that built into this workflow is to preserve the original GPS coordinates as attributes, which works really well for fittings and devices. It's just a configuration that we can do in our deployment. It's a little more complex with vertices of lines, and that is something that is, well, we don't have an elegant solution for that at this time. It's still a work in progress.
Okay. Are you expecting the mapper to snap assets together on the back end, or can the software do this automatically to minimize manual work?
That'll be the mapper on the back end. The mapper ultimately is the one responsible for the quality of the as-built, as it is today.
Okay. What mechanism are you using to get the task information into the Workforce app?
Oh, the assignment of the jobs. As part of Workforce, there's actually a web component where the company can just type in, just like you do if you have a work order system today. You can just type that in and assign it to the person, and that's it. It'll show up on that assigned person's app. It's very easy.
Cool. Cool. Question about the staging geodatabase. How is it hosted to receive a real-time feed from the field?
That's the beauty of the technology. That's just simply the way it works. No extra setup required.
Okay. Do you use some sort of FME script to get GPS data back to Esri?
No, that again is the beauty of this. The Esri consumes directly the GPS.
I apologize. It looks like we're having audio difficulties. So at this point, I think we will conclude the webinar. We do have a few questions still remaining, and we will take care of capturing those and respond to the various different people who posed those questions. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and we appreciate your time and your interest, and look forward to hearing from you further with any additional questions or information needs you may have. Thank you very much.